go down into the ground to worship. That is the first thing that marks this, apart from every other religious act in your life as a Roman soldier. The official sacrifices happen above ground, in the open, in front of the assembled century. Public, visible, performed for everyone to see. This is different. This happens below. You descend a few steps into a long, low chamber, built to feel like a cave. Windowless, lit by lamps and torches, and the men who go down with you are the only men who will ever know what happens there. This is the Mithraeum, the temple of Mithras. And you, a Roman soldier, sworn to the Roman gods, participating dutifully in the official observances above ground, are also an initiate of a mystery cult that most of the empire knows almost nothing about, practiced underground, restricted to men, structured around secrets you have sworn never to reveal. By the 2nd and 3rd centuries, more Roman soldiers worship Mithras than any other god. Not officially. The official religion is still the gods of Rome, the sacrifices to the standards, the emperor's genius. But in the actual devotional lives of the men in the legions, in the thing they believe in and descend into the earth to practice, Mithras has become the god of the Roman army, and almost no one outside the cult knows what it is. The secrecy was the point, and it makes the historian's job almost impossible. Mithraism was a mystery religion. That word, mystery, is precise. The cult was built around secret knowledge, revealed to initiates in stages, never written down in the way that the beliefs of a public religion are written down. The initiates swore not to reveal what they learned, and they kept the oath so well that even now, with all the mithraea that have been excavated and all the images that have survived, we do not fully know what the cult actually taught. We can see what they built. We can see the images they left. We cannot read the beliefs, because the beliefs were never written for outsiders, and the initiates took them to their graves. What survives is the architecture and the art. Dozens of mithraea have been found across the empire, and a striking number of them are directly associated with military sites. Beneath or beside the forts where soldiers were stationed, from the Rhine to the Danube to the northern frontier of Britain, wherever the legions went, the mithraea appear. The cult traveled with the army, spread through the army, and rooted itself in the specific world of military men. And at the center of every mithraeum is the same image, the tauroctony, Mithras killing the bull. The image is everywhere in the cult, and it is the key to everything, and we still cannot fully read it. Mithras, a young man in a Phrygian cap, kneeling on the back of a great bull, pulling its head back with one hand and driving a knife into its neck with the other. Around the central act, a specific cast of figures that appears again and again. A dog and a snake reaching toward the wound, a scorpion at the bull's genitals, a raven, the sun and the moon, two torch-bearers, one with his torch raised and one with his torch lowered. The same scene, with the same elements in mithraeum after mithraeum across the empire, executed with a consistency that means it was not decoration, but doctrine. A specific image carrying a specific meaning that every initiate understood and no outsider was told. Scholars have argued for centuries about what it means. The astronomical elements suggest the image encodes a map of the heavens. The bull as a constellation, the figures as stars, the whole scene a representation of cosmic forces and the soul's journey through them. The sacrifice suggests a creation myth or a story of salvation, the bull's death releasing life or renewing the world. We can see that the image mattered enormously. We cannot fully recover why. What we can say is that it spoke to soldiers. Something in the cult of Mithras, the discipline of it, the hierarchy of initiation, grades a man could rise through. The brotherhood of men bound by shared secrets, the imagery of struggle and sacrifice and cosmic order resonated with the specific world of military men in a way that the official state religion did not. The gods of Rome were the gods of the state, distant and public and civic. Mithras was personal, secret, yours. A god you chose, an initiation you earned, a brotherhood you belong to. The brotherhood is what you actually joined, and it is what the cult actually was for the men in it. The Mithraeum was small. That was structural, not incidental. The chambers held perhaps a few dozen men, and the cult did not build great public temples because it was not a public religion. Each Mithraeum was a small congregation of initiates, and the smallness meant intimacy. The men who descended into the earth together to share the ritual meal and honor Mithras knew each other. They were bound to each other by the shared secret and the shared initiation, and the shared meal in the cave-like dark. For soldiers, this brotherhood had a specific value. Military life already bound men together. The contubernium, the century, the shared danger and shared hardship of the army. The cult of Mithras deepened that bond and gave it a sacred dimension. The men who worshipped together below ground were bound not just as soldiers, but as initiates, brothers in a mystery, members of something that the men outside the cult could not enter and did not understand. There was a hierarchy. Grades of initiation a man rose through, each with its own name and its own symbols, from the lowest grade up through the ranks of the cult to the highest. A man could advance, could earn his way deeper into the mystery, learn more of the secret knowledge, rise in the small sacred hierarchy of the Mithraeum. For soldiers who lived their working lives in a rigid military hierarchy, the cult offered a parallel hierarchy, one they entered by choice, advanced in by devotion, and that meant something entirely their own. Remember your own initiation. You are permitted to remember it, even if you are not permitted to describe it. The blindfold, the hands on your shoulders guiding you down the steps into air that smelled of smoke and stone and close-packed men. The voice that asked you questions you had been given no way to prepare for. The moment the cold touched you, and the moment the heat did, and the long stretch of held breath where you did not know which was coming next, and understood that not knowing was the point. Somewhere in the dark, men you marched with every day were watching you be tested, and their silence was part of the test. And then it was over, and the blindfold came off, and the lamplight showed you the chamber, and the image of the god killing the bull, and the men around you were smiling, and you were one of them now, and something had changed that you would spend the rest of your life unable to explain to anyone who had not gone down the same steps. The initiations were ordeals. This much the sources suggest, even through the secrecy. To enter the cult and to advance through its grades, a man underwent initiations, and the initiations were not gentle. There are hints in the sources and the archaeology of trials, ordeals of heat and cold, of fear, of simulated danger, tests a man had to pass to prove himself worthy of the next grade. Pits have been found in some Mithraea that may have been used for initiation. Ordeals. The cult demanded that a man prove himself, endure something, earn his place through trial, rather than simply declaring his belief. This too spoke to soldiers, men whose entire lives had been shaped by ordeal. The brutal training, the forced marches, the endurance that Roman military life demanded, understood a religion that asked them to prove themselves through hardship. The cult of Mithras did not offer easy comfort. It offered a mystery you had to earn, a brotherhood you had to be tested to join, a series of ordeals that separated the initiates from everyone else. For men who had already proven themselves through the ordeals of military life, the ordeals of the cult were a familiar kind of test, and passing them meant belonging to something that the untested could not enter. Here is the strange doubleness of the Roman soldier's religious life, and it is the thing worth sitting with. Above ground, in the daylight, you performed the official religion. You stood in the formation for the sacrifices. You honored the standards. You offered to the emperor's genius and the gods of Rome, correctly, dutifully, in front of everyone, because the oath required it and the institution demanded it, and refusal meant death. As the Christian soldiers were discovering in the same years, in the same army, sometimes in the same forts. And below ground, in the lamplit dark, you practiced the religion you actually believed in, the mystery you had chosen. the brotherhood you had earned, the God you had descended into the earth to honor, whose image of sacrifice and cosmic struggle meant something to you that the civic gods of the state never had. Rome permitted this. That is the key difference between Mithraism and Christianity, and it is why one cult flourished in the army while the other was persecuted in it. Mithraism did not demand exclusivity. A soldier could worship Mithras below ground and honor the gods of Rome above ground and see no contradiction. The mystery cult sat alongside the official religion rather than replacing it. Mithras did not forbid the sacrifice to the emperor. Mithras did not tell his initiates that the other gods were false. The cult was a private devotion added to the public one, not a rival to it, and so Rome had no reason to fear it. The Christian could not do this. The Christian's God demanded to be the only God, forbade the sacrifice to the others, made the private faith and the public oath into an irreconcilable conflict. And so the Christian was persecuted while the initiate of Mithras worshipped in peace. Not because Rome loved Mithras and hated Christ, but because Mithras let a man remain a loyal soldier of the Roman gods, while Christ did not. You descended into the earth to worship the God you had chosen. And in the morning you climbed back into the daylight and stood in the formation and honored the gods of Rome. And the two things did not conflict, and both of them were yours. The men who went down into the Mithraeum with you were the only ones who knew what happened there. They kept the secret so well that even now, with the temples excavated and the images studied, the mystery they died protecting has not been fully recovered. Whatever it was the thing Roman soldiers actually believed. Not the gods on the monuments, the God in the cave. If this is the Rome you come back for, not the official religion, but the secret one the soldiers actually kept. Hit that like button and subscribe to Legacy of Rome. Tuesday, Friday, Sunday, every week we go back into what it really cost to serve Rome. Subscribe and we'll keep making it.